There's been a lot of talk about trade targets lately, and often these are influenced by recent scores. But one thing we're not looking at a lot is the 3 round averages. So today, I thought I'd bring you guys some power rankings, position by position, on the top 5 players at every spot in terms of 3 round averages. Now, this video here is brought to you guys by Game Day Squad 2. That's where I use a lot of this information to make my Game Day Squad roster, where you can pick anyone basically from any team there, whereas only a few of these guys are relevant to our fantasy sides. Now, let's get into it. First up, hooker spot. We got Aaron Clark in number 1 spot, then Robson, Egan, Mama Zealous, and Marshall King. And you'd have been surprised in the preseason if you told me that there wasn't going to be a Damien Cook on here, or there wasn't going to be a Harry Grant on here, or even Reed Marnie in the picture. So we've had a bit of a new guard of hookers sort of popping up this year. And I will say Aaron Clark, first one. Minutes have been increasing. He's had some attacking stats recently. Back-to-back 60-plus minute games. That averages at a 65.3, so that's red hot. He's a great option to run in game day sides as well. Robson is in form too. So when we look at Robson, the running game has sort of come out recently as well. Now, he's not one that you can really target in fantasy. Like, it's just, the origin period's not going to be great. He'll play origin almost certainly. He's going to play pretty big minutes, I would expect as well. So he's a guy who's not going to rack up enough games through the origin period to be worthwhile. But I think he will have those random games where he does pop off through this period. But even then, backing up from origin as well, he's not going to be the hooker next year. The club he's moving to the Roosters. So I think they're going to bring someone else in and spell him and sort of try to figure out that hooker position for themselves. Third up, Wade Egan. And Egan's been on fire all year round. Like, he's been one of the number 1 hookers in the game. But that 57.7 3-round average is just flying. He's playing 80 minutes basically all the time. The big issue with Egan was they were carrying a bench hooker last year, and he wasn't durable. He was picking up all these little injuries. He was getting concussions, like HIAs, that kind of thing as well. And just having these short games where you have a run of good scores, and he's always been a good scorer, but then you have these injuries of affected games. So for Egan, it's just been a case of better health, better durability, and better scoring this year. Then Mama Zealous, number 4. And this is one I really want to hammer home. I do not want to see anyone sending me trades where they're selling Mama Zealous. He's a rock solid option. And while the Rabbitohs do miss round 12, they then basically play through the entire bye period and origin period. So if Mama Zealous, he's one of the best hookers you can have through this period of time. If you're running Mama Zealous and Riley Smith, or Mama Zealous and Aaron Clark, or one of those combos there, maybe Egan, Marshall King, you're in a really good position at your hooker spot. And finally, Jeremy Marshall King, one that's gone a bit under the radar. He's missed a few weeks recently with that leg injury, but he's been in form, a 54 average here, and the minutes have been increasing. It hasn't been 80 minutes by any means. They've had Donahue on the bench, who has been stealing some minutes, and Donahue is still there. So Marshall King, I'm not trusting him without that 80-minute role or close to that 80-minute role. So I'm going to need to see that before I consider him. But if you wanted a pod hooker, he's a guy who's pumping out big numbers and hasn't had the attacking stats yet this year either. So it could be a really hot option for you. Now, rolling through to the middle forward spot, we've got Terrell May in number 1, and this is actually quite a big gap, by the way. Terrell May top spot there. Payne Haas, Aaron Clark, Toby Couchman, Isaiah Yeo. And again, just to recap sort of what we're doing here, talking about those 3-round averages. So who's in form right now? The middle forward spot is definitely more fantasy relevant, I will say, but these are usually the guys that I'm targeting for my Game Day Squad side as well. So if you guys do want to jump on Game Day, it is gamedaysquad.com.au. If you use the code TCA when you sign up, you get a bunch of freebies, and it helps me out as well. So check out Game Day Squad, use code TCA, and you'll be set there. Now, the middle forward spot, Terrell May and Payne Haas, 1 and 2. And you look at them and go, all right, cool. They're the 1 and 2. Of course, they're the 1 and 2. But those averages are pretty different over the last 3 weeks. So we've seen Terrell May score a try recently. He's had back-to-back 80-plus minute games, and he's pumping out a 91 3-round average, as opposed to Payne Haas, who's running that 76 average. So when it comes to Payne Haas, I don't look 76 is nothing to shirk at. It's not a low average, but Terrell May has just been on a different planet here. And that 104 last week means that his average is just going to be high rolling forward. Now, Terrell May is my captain at this stage. Just the minutes are too high to ignore. And the matchup against the Dragons is pretty good as well. They're a team that hasn't been able to defend consistently. So Terrell May could grab some attacking stats here. Whereas Payne Haas, a bit of a tougher matchup for him. Still should be good. Willison is playing in the back row. So I sort of look at that and go, all right, Willison was eating up some of those prop minutes. The fact that Willison is now playing in the second row spot does improve Payne Haas's minute security. So just have a think about that. Payne Haas, he could be an option you go for, but you're sort of betting on some attacking stats, whereas Terrell May's base and those minutes in particular is just so strong there. Then moving through, Aaron Clark is number 3. He's got to pop up, right? He's absolutely everywhere. Toby Couchman, Isaiah Yeo, 4 and 5. And Couchman had a bit of a shocker last week, pumped out that 44. So he's one who, I don't know, like obviously if he's in your fantasy team, you leave him in there. This is where that game day strategy comes in, where you can pick your team every week from a huge pool of players. And with Toby Couchman, I left him out last week, and I'll be leaving him out again this week. I just sort of looked at it and thought, all right, Emre Gul is back. It's going to be a bit of a concern. We're seeing Clemmer getting more and more minutes as well. We're sort of seeing, guys like Laurie fading out of the squad, and Laurie was one of those guys who was playing, sub 20 minutes there. Now we've seen Hamish Stewart go into the lock spot. Jack DeBellin on the bench. Now, does DeBellin move into the prop rotation at times? Like, we don't know what's going to happen here. And Dylan Egan also got less minutes last week too. So Couchin's minutes are under threat. I would say that this average is going to fade a bit. But if you got him early enough, you bought him at a cheap enough price that you're going to stick with him through the origin period, right? He's going to be a guy who he'll turn up through the origin period, in particular in round 12, or not round 12, but I think round 15 and 18. I'm trying to remember the Dragons buys, but there are a couple of those minor buy rounds where you're not going to be able to play Terrell May, Payne Haas, Isaiah Yeo, because they're playing in origin. So Toby Couchman's going to be a necessity through that period. And I will say too, if you're on game day and you're making trades right now with other coaches, so it's more of a dynasty model if you guys haven't played where you own the players and you can trade those guys. You could try to pick up Couchman and buy low now, but I don't think he's going to be that cheap. I think you'll still have to spend a bit to get him there. Then Isaiah Yeo is number 5 here, 63 average. He had a quieter one last week as well. Scored that 50, but he's been solid overall too. I think it's way too early to sell Yo. By the way, I've looked at a few trades that have been sent through. Some of them have included Yo in the sell column, and I think it's just far too early. I get that there's appealing options, but I would say Yo is not someone you want to sell. One guy I'm predicting to enter this conversation pretty soon is Adam Fanua-Blake. I think it's a good matchup against Parramatta this week. He scored the 70 last week. I think those numbers are going to bump up as those lower scores sort of fade out because he had the groin injury about 3 weeks ago and had a quieter game, in the blowout 2 weeks ago and sort of bounced back here. So Fanua-Blake, I think he'll push into this conversation. You can make a case for some other guys like Max Plath potentially entering this conversation when he comes back. He's definitely one I'm eyeing off going forward as well. Jumping into the second row spot, and Huddy Young has been the guy, and this has been for quite a while now. It's pretty crazy that Hudson Young sits ahead of Bo Firma, who scored 109 points last week. But for Hudson Young, first up here, look, Young, Firma, Preston, Pierce, Paul, Lucas, there's nothing fake about this list. Like, this is, every other list you look at, you go, the middle forward spot. I think Clark's a bit inflated right now, but in this list here, it's pretty straight up and down. And look, some of these guys have definitely had some more attacking stats than they usually will. They won't finish the year on 60 plus averages. Maybe they might, like low 60s, but yeah, these are the guys. Like these are 5 of the guys that you want in your back row spot. Hudson Young first. The concern is Origin. Obviously, he's playing great footy, and the Blues usually carry a second rower on the bench there. Hudson Young's been in the Origin side before. He's played reasonably well in small minutes. I don't think he's let us down, really. So I think he's going to be in that Blues squad. I don't think he's going to be a starter, though, so I think he'll back up, and I think you can pretty comfortably start him in those minor buy rounds after Origin weeks. So, I've been starting Hudson Young and Nicholson in my game day squad side for about a few weeks now. And Huddy Young has been on fire lately, so that's been a great one to have in my side. Bo Firma's up next, and I had him in one of my game day sides. I don't have him on fantasy side, which is where I'm steering towards that now. But look, Bo Firma, he pumped out that big score last week. He's had some quiet ones as well, playing at center. I think this is just, this is Bo Firma, right? Like, he's not going to be super consistent. He's not that pure work rate back rower. He's more a guy who has those attacking stats in his game, and he can definitely pop off for those. Now, in this game this week, they've got a bit of a tough matchup. So I sort of look at this and I go, all right, I don't think the Titans are really going to compete in this game. It's not like the Cowboys where there are some pretty easy defensive exploits to work. This is going to be a tough matchup. So for mine, Bo Firma's one that you could start this week in game day, but you might want to steer in a different direction. I personally would be starting Jacob Preston over him because Preston has the Titans. He's on the other side of this exact matchup. Titans have been leaking points on points on points. We saw Jeremiah Nanai bounce back last week. I think Preston pumps out a huge score this week, so he's a must start. Whereas Bo Firma against the Dogs, I think Dogs will lock it up, and I think Firma will be quiet. Then Kai Pearce-Paul, he's sort of just been going about business. Not any crazy high scores, but just a really solid set of stats across the board. So if you're going with Kai Pearce-Paul, it's a bit of a safe option. Not a bad option as well. A bit expensive now in fantasy, but if got him in your game day squad, you can definitely run him as well. I'd play him over Firma, probably behind Preston. And I'm going to say behind Hudson Young right now. Just Young's been in such good form. But again, that Storm matchup, maybe anti-pod Young, because a lot of people are going to jump on Young with this form that we're talking about. But that Storm matchup could be tough. And then Dylan Lucas is the last guy here. He's a cracking option, by the way. This is an absolute red hot option. Lucas pumped out really solid base stats last week. So it was 49 points, no tackle breaks, no offloads. That's the kind of game that you sort of look at and you go, yeah, cool, cool. That's a guy I can plug into my back row spot or center spot in fantasy as well. And I'm just going to trust him to score a really solid base there and then add attacking stats on top. So yeah, Dylan Lucas, great target in both games, and definitely a guy that I'm starting in my game day squad this week. But I'm looking at Preston and Lucas is my plan as it stands right now. I've moved off Young, just as we've been talking about it. I think, Lucas has a bit more attacking upside in this matchup against South Sydney. Then the halves. Look, there's a lot of talk right now about Nathan Cleary being disappointing, this, that, everything else. He's been compared to Terrell May and Payne Haas, right? So he's not being really compared to other halves. And I think this really demonstrates that. So these are last 3-round averages. Nathan Cleary is sitting at that 67. He had that one really big game where he pumped out 93, and it's been a couple of games around that 50 mark. So for him, he's doing a job. He hasn't had any attacking stats really over the last sort of month of footy. So this is a 67 average without much of an attacking showing from a guy who has that in his game. So I think Nathan Cleary is going to click at some point. Like, he can't continue to be as ineffective as he has been. He's just too good to play the level of mediocrity he's been playing so far. So I think Cleary is one of those guys you try and hold on to as long as you can. And even around 11, I'll think about it. I'll definitely think about it because for round 11, the Panthers have a bye, and then round 12, Origin players miss games. Nathan Cleary is pretty likely to be picked for the Blues. It's not a certainty, it's not guaranteed. But I'd say he's quite likely. So from my perspective, you hold him maybe for round 12 and just see what happens with that Origin squad. See if he gets picked. If he doesn't get picked, he plays round 12, and you've got Nathan Cleary in your team in a bye round. So you wait and see. But I think he's probably going to get picked for the team. Now, even if he does get picked, though, the Panthers aren't in a good position at all. So they're going to be trying to play their squad to win games through the Origin period. They're not going to be resting guys as much as they have in previous years. So I would expect that Nathan Cleary is going to be a guy who backs up a bit more than he usually has behind Origin games, especially since they don't really have the capable halves back up, and Jerome Luai to lead the team around as well. So if they don't play Cleary, they are sort of, no, they're not forfeiting, but they're kind of taking a defeat most of the time without him. So yeah, Nathan Cleary, red hot option top. Jamal Fogarty, big game last week, scored the try. He was on a quiet one. It was about 11 points after 30 minutes, but he's gotten hot at the right time, scored that try, ran over. He's obviously signed with Manly. He's a guy who I've had in my game day squad side a couple of times recently. And look, you pick 3 halves in game day. So you can really pick anyone. There's no salary cap there. It's just who do you have in your squad. Fogarty's one that I'm liking a bit this week. Nico Hines I like a bit more. And Nathan Cleary, I'm hot and cold on. But I think the matchup this week isn't too bad for Cleary. So when we go to Fogarty, if you think Canberra is going to win and win well, then you go Fogarty. But this Storm matchup, I guess the more I think about that, I think the Raiders, I'm tipping the Raiders, though. That's the thing. I'm tipping the Raiders to win this game. So I think Fogarty's going to be a big part of that. They're going to have to really wrestle it and, win through the forward pack. And he's going to have some opportunities. So I think Fogarty could show out, but it's not going to be an easy downhill run for him. Tommy Dearden up next, and he definitely had a downhill run last week. 5 try assists. He was absolutely coasting along in that game. And for Tommy Dearden, it's been a tale of 2 seasons, really. He started off really cold, was very poor when he was playing next to Tom Duffy. I'm not blaming Duffy for that, but the Cowboys overall, they really struggled through that period. They've kind of found their mojo a bit. It has kind of coincided with Clifford coming into the team. I don't think it's because of Clifford, though. I think Clifford's a solid player, but it feels like they've just kind of rediscovered what they were meant to be doing since that time, whereas they started off so cold. Like, you think back and they got smashed by Manly. Jeremiah Nanai got dropped. Like, it was a really crazy time for the Cowboys. So yeah, they've heated up. They put 50 on the Titans last week. Tommy Dearden, obviously, he's an attacking stat guy. He's a guy you can play in game day when he has those big attacking stat opportunities against weaker opponents. But for this week, the Warriors are not a walkover matchup at all. Like, I'm tipping the Warriors to beat the Cowboys this week. So I'm not going to be running Dearden in my game day squad. And I think he's too much of an Origin potential for fantasy as well. When we look at fantasy, Cam Munster's probably going to be the guy who, is the six, but there's talk that he could be at fullback and Dearden could sneak in, or Dearden might be on the bench there as well. Like he's a solid unit. Could be anything there. So just keep an eye on that. But I wouldn't be targeting Dearden necessarily. I mean, he has dropped some cash, but just not for me. Nico Hines is one that I'm definitely hot on though. He's sort of found a bit of form recently. That 55.7 average isn't quite as high as we want, but it's around what he's priced at. So he's sort of motoring along okay. I will say for Hines, the running game just hasn't been there as much this year. And there's definitely meters on offer there, but they're softer meters than they were in the previous years. Like he used to sort of run the ball like he was going to burst through, and I haven't really seen that much this year. So you can rediscover that. He's a must play. But even this week, the matchup against Parramatta, I think it's going to be a bit of a shootout. Both teams can score points. Both teams are struggling with defense a bit lately as well. So should be a good one. Nico Hines v. Mitch Moses. Nico Hines is the better supporting cast, but I think Mitch Moses is the superior player. So yeah, Hines is one I'm starting in game day this week, and I've got in fantasy as well. So I'm all in on Hines at the moment. And then Cherry Evans, the last guy here, had a good game last week, sort of bounced up, but he's streaky, right? So you pick him in the right matchup, you sort of leave him out the wrong matchup. They've got to buy this week, so he's pretty irrelevant for Magic Round. Then center spot, we've got Bo Firma in number one spot. Shouldn't surprise you. We talked about Bo. He's been pumping up. Kale Iro is coming back this week, so I've excluded players who are injured from this list. And Iro's back this week, so I'm going to let him in. That 3-round average is from a little while ago, though, where he was absolutely killing it. One of those games was a half game, too. So he's just been racking up tries is the big thing there. So very solid base stats, racking up a few tries. He's got Parramatta this week who can leak some points as well. So I think Iro is a really solid option for this week. He's in most of my game day squad sides. So Hines and Iro are definitely sneaking into my teams. Jackson Purdue up next. And this might surprise you for a 3-round average. So 59 points. Pretty huge. Even last week, he grabbed the 45. Ball didn't go his way as much as previous weeks. So, it's a tough one. 50-point win, you thought he might score a bit more, but he's been rock solid through this year. He sort of looks for the ball most of the time. He had a few injury issues last week. So, yeah, I'm stoked with him. He's in my starting side 100%. He's really someone in my fantasy side that I just don't consider at all. So when it comes to Jackson Purdue, set and forget, leave him rolling. You're absolutely set there. And Herbie Farmworth is number 4 here. This is pretty expected, but 57.3 includes a score around that 75 mark. The 48 was the lowest score in this as well, and something in the 50s there. So yeah, for Herbie Farmworth, he's been rock solid. Like his lowest score this year at center is 48, which is just absolutely crazy. So when you go to Herbie Farmworth, you know what you're going to get. And we've been getting it so far this year. We'll say the Dolphins too. They've got a great origin schedule. So when it comes to origin schedules, it's probably Iro and Farmworth who have the best immediate origin schedules. Purdue's gets better after round 12, so I'd hold him for sure until like round 19 at least. But Herbie Farmworth being a POM, he's a guarantee of not making origin, and he's just going to keep on pumping out these big numbers. So yeah, he's in my side right there next to Jackson Purdue. And I'm not really thinking about the center spot that much. Those two are just getting the job done and don't have to think about it at all. But I'll tell you what, this guy, Dylan Lucas, is making me think about it a little bit, just a little bit. And for Dylan Lucas, I've got Dylan Lucas ahead of Bo Firma in my rankings here for the center spot. But obviously the 3-round averages don't lie, and Firma's ahead by 5 points because of that explosion game. Now, for Dylan Lucas, I just think like the base stats have been so solid. We talked about him in the back row, but the origin schedule for the Knights as well is really good. So he's a guy that you can pretty comfortably play through this period. And if you're targeting a center, it's probably Lucas or Farmworth. Like they're probably the two that you're really looking at. People are going to Firma, but I think he plays Origin. People are going to Iro, but first week back from multi-week hamstring injury. I don't love that normally. So Farmworth or Lucas. Lucas does a bit of that lingering hamstring concern to me, but I still think it's like a very small chance. So it's one of those two if you're targeting a center this week. And I went Farmworth last week, so I'm just going to stick with him. Probably let Lucas slide through, but closer to round 12, I might have a think about him then. And the wing fullback spot, we finish off here. So Scotty Drinkwater comes in number 1, and this one shouldn't surprise you too much. Drinkwater's been on fire. Drinkwater is a guy who I don't have any of the elite cards on game day for. So I've only got bronze Drinkwaters, which is pretty disappointing because I'd love to run a gold or a platinum there. But yeah, Scotty Drinkwater, I'm running that bronze Drinkwater in game day, and I'm probably not getting him for a little bit in fantasy until he gets until he fits my team. Actually, is probably the answer there. I'm just looking at my team and I go, you know what? I don't really need to go and buy an expensive wing fullback. I'm eyeing off Cobbo this week. I'm really thinking about Cobbo, and that's kind of where my head's going with this. So for Scotty Drinkwater at 59 average, look, he's killing it. he's goal kicking. That's the big difference this year. So I think it's sustainable. He's a great option to play, great option to target. And after round 12, his origin schedule is fantastic. I might just end up paying a little bit more money than you guys do for him, but I can live with that. Then the Hammer's up next, and this one might surprise you, and really this list in general might surprise you because, again, if we talked about it preseason, we said, all right, you're going to have this power rankings list in round 9, and it's not going to include Kalen Ponga, James Tedesco, Tommy Turbo, Reece Walsh, Jaden Campbell, any of these guys. Campbell, by the way, would have made it if he was fit. His scores were good enough, but he's not fit. So, yeah, and you got Hamaso, Murray Talangi, Mazu, Dylan Edwards. And Edwards you would have expected, but the other three, not so much. So the big hammer there, he's been killing it. Lots of attacking stats. Dolphins have been in form lately too. So I don't mind the idea of owning shares in this Dolphins backline. I've got Herbie in mind, but you go Osaka if you want to be crazy too. And, Hamaso's one that, yeah, he's a solid option, but he will play Origin. So if you do have him in your team, I talked to a few of you guys who do have him. You stick with him until round 11, round 12, and then you make the move. But until then, you keep riding the wave and see how he goes. And he went great last week. One thing I'll shout out to is on Game Day Squad, the winger fullback spots are split as well. So when we look at this list here, you've got 3 fullbacks, you've got 2 wingers, and you can actually play 2 starting wingers, only 1 starting fullback. So the wingers are kind of more valuable in Game Day Squad. And one guy who doesn't pop up here, but is a winger over there is Fletcher Sharp. So he's usually my starting winger in Game Day. But Murray Talangi is one that I haven't caught a trick with and haven't started much yet. Probably should be starting to look at that because that 54.7 3-round average is pretty interesting. It's a good spot. It's a good spot to be in for him. So, yeah, 54.7. He's running up. He had a massive score against the Titans, but not as big as his winger partner, Derby. He was even bigger. Murray Talangi, though, he's in form, and he was getting cheap at the start of the year. So if you go look at his profile, you can see he dropped down 100, 150K. It's a good example of a guy who you buy cheap and then you get some form out of them and you get some points back. Greggy Mazu, 54.3, had that huge game. We had that try assist, that big run, the Barnstorm run where he scored like 80 points. Other than that, it's been sort of around that 40 mark, 35, that kind of area. So for Greg Mazu, it feels like it's 35 to 40 and then an explosion game here and there, which is pumping out a pretty solid average. I think it's a low 50s average overall, but a 54.3 3-round average. Again, at the wing spot, he's a guy I'm starting in a few teams. South Sydney, I think, are going to be absolutely terrible this week. They're missing Latrell, they're missing Cody, they're missing Whiten, they're missing Cam Murray. They're missing a lot of guys. It's nothing against them, but I just think they're going to be cooked. So Greg Mazu, maybe he scores a try. Maybe he receives a pass for a try at some point. That would be pretty exciting. And Dylan Edwards is the last guy. He's hit a bit of form recently. That last game was really solid for him. Just hasn't really tapped into those attacking stats, but there was a good work rate in that one. So from my perspective, Dylan Edwards is one you can start. But again, you just got to look at the matchups and sort of think, all right, am I tipping the Panthers this week? And the Panthers, they have a tougher matchup. They're big outsiders. So from my perspective, Dylan Edwards probably isn't someone that we're targeting as much. Now, guys, that's Power Rankings done and dusted. If you do want to check out Game Day Squad, awesome game. It's Game Day Squad. GameDaySquad.com.au is the website there. Use the code TCA as well. And if you use code TCA, you get a bunch of free packs there. They'll be emailed to you either end of day or first thing in the morning. And you get a bunch of freebies there so you can stack your squad up, start competing in our league. Our league we're running on not the starter tier, which is the first one, but Classic. So Classic is mostly just bronze players. And it's all pretty straightforward once you jump in there. If you do want to learn how to play Game Day Squad as well, I do have videos previously on this channel that do go through how to play. Also, if you're going to be at Magic Round, I'll be at Magic Round too. Check out the Instagram, but there's an event I'm running from about lunchtime on Saturday. So I'll see you guys down there as well. Good luck this week. Set your lineups and peace out, guys.